I had read it, and I said no, and she asked me if I could read writin', and I told her no, only coarse hand. And then she said the paper warn't anything but a bookmark to keep her a place, and I might go and play now. I went off down to the river, studyin' over this thing, and pretty soon I noticed that my nigger was followin' along behind. When we was out of sight of the house he looked back and around a second, and then comes a-runnin' and says, "Mars George, if you'll come down into the swamp, I'll show you a whole stack of water moccasins." Thinks I, that's mighty curious. He said that yesterday. He ought ter know body don't love water moccasins enough to go round hunting for them. What is he up to, anyway? So I says, "All right, trot ahead." I followed a half-mile. Then he struck out over the swamp and waded ankle-deep as much as another half-mile. We come to a little flat piece of land which was dry, and very thick with trees and bushes and vines, and he says, "You shove right in dere just a few steps, Mars George. Dat's where dey is. I seed 'em before. I don't keer to see 'em no more." Then he slopped right along and went away, and pretty soon the trees hid him. I poked into the place a ways and come to a little open patch as big as a bedroom, all hung around with vines, and found a man layin' there asleep, and by jings, it was my old Jim. I waked him up, and I reckoned it was goin' to be a grand surprise to him to see me again, but it warn't. He nearly cried he was so glad, but he warn't surprised. Said he swum along behind me that night and heard me yell every time, but doesn't answer, because he didn't want nobody to pick him up and take him into slavery again. Says he, "I got hurt a little and couldn't swim fast, so I was considerable ways behind you towards the last. When you landed, I reckoned I could ketch up with you on the land 'thout having to shout at you, but when I see dat house I begin to go slow. I is off too fur to hear what dey say to you. I was afraid of the dogs, but when it was all quiet again, I knowed you was in de house, so I struck out for de woods to wait for day. Early in de morning some of de niggers come along, gwine to de fields, and dey took me and showed me dis place, where de dogs can't track me on accounts of de water, and dey brings me truck to eat every night, and tells me how you's a-getting along." "Why didn't you tell my Jack to fetch me here sooner, Jim?" "Well, 'twarn't no use to disturb you, Huck, till we could do something, but we's all right now. I been a-buying pots and pans and vittles, and I got a chancet and a-patching up de raft nights when—" "What raft, Jim?" "Our old raft." "You mean to say our old raft warn't smashed all to flinders?" "No, she warn't. She was tore up a good deal. One end of her was, but they warn't no great harm done, only our traps was most all lost. If we hadn't dived so deep and swum so fur under water, and de night hadn't been so dark, and we weren't so skeered, and been such pumpkin heads as de sayin' is, we'd a seed de raft. But it's just as well we didn't, 'cause now she's all fixed up again most as good as new, and we's got a new lot of stuff in de place of what is lost." "Well, how did you get hold of the raft again, Jim? Did you catch her?" "How I goin' to ketch her and I out in the woods? No, some er de niggers found her ketched on a snag along here in de bend, and dey hid her in a crick 'mongst de willows, and dey was so much jawin' about which on 'em she belonged to de most, dat I come to hear about it pretty soon, so I ups and settles de trouble by tellin' 'em she don't belong to none of 'em, but to you and me, and I asked 'em if dey's gwine to grab a young white gentleman's property and get a hidin' for it. Den I gin 'em 10 cents apiece, and dey's mighty well satisfied, and wished some more rafts would come along and make 'em rich again. Dey's mighty good to me, dese niggers is, and whatever I wants 'em to do for me, I don't have to ask 'em twice, honey. Dat Jack's a good nigger, and pretty smart." "Yes, he is. He ain't ever told me you was here. Told me to come, and he'd show me a lot of water moccasins. If anything happens, he ain't mixed up in it. He can say he never seen us together, and it'll be the truth." I don't want to talk much about the next day. I reckon I'll cut it pretty short. I waked up about dawn and was a-goin' to turn over and go to sleep again, when I noticed how still it was. Didn't seem to be anybody stirrin'. That warn't usual. Next, I noticed that Buck was up and gone. Well, I gets up a-wonderin' and goes downstairs. Nobody around, everything as still as a mouse. Just the same outside. Thinks I, what does it mean? Down by the woodpile I comes across my Jack and says, "What's it all about?" Says he, "Don't you know, Mars George?" "No," says I don't." "Well, den, Miss Sophia's run off, 'deed she has. She run off in de night sometime, nobody don't know jist when. Run off to get married to dat young Harney Shepherdson, you know. Leastways so dey spec. De family found it out about half-hour ago, maybe little mo', and I tell you dey wa'n't no time lost. Sich another hurryin' up guns and horses you never see. De woman folks is gone for to stir up de relations, and ole Mars Saul and de boys tuck dey guns and rode up de river road for to try to ketch dat young man and kill him 'fore he can get across de river with Miss Sophia. I reckon dey's gwine to be mighty rough times." "Buck went off that wakened me up." "Well, I reckon he did. Dey warn't gwine to mix you up in it. Marse Buck, he loaded up his gun and 'lowed he's gwine to fetch home Shepherdson or bust. Well, there'll be plenty in 'em dere, I reckon, and you bet you he'll fetch one if he gets a chanct." I took up the river road as hard as I could put. By and by, I began to hear guns a good ways off. When I came inside of the log store in the woodpile where the steamboats land, I worked along under the trees and brush till I got to a good place, and then I clumb up into the forks of a cottonwood that was out of reach and watched. There was a wood rank 4 foot high a little ways in front of the tree, and first I was going to hide behind that, but maybe it was luckier I didn't. There was 4 or 5 men cavorting